Okay, guys, so this is the first of the, well, let's call them cheap product reviews that I promised were coming if you watched my last video I did last night. So the purpose of this video is not to analyze if this item is worth what it costs MSRP. I don't think I could buy a monitor MSRP, at least not as someone who has marginally limited financial resources. I can't justify, especially with how fast these things go obsolete and you can get something dirt cheap like this right here just a couple years later. I just can't justify investing more than $100, $200, something like that in a monitor. I can't do it. So what I'm going over here, and if you've come to this video, your question is, hey, I found this monitor, my buddy offered it to me for $100, I found it on Craigslist for $150, my uncle gave it to me, and I want to know if it's good for gaming, yada yada yada. That's the answer, that's what this video is here to answer. So I'm going to just be blunt. Yes. It's a hell of a monitor if you have found a good deal. Before I explain why it's a heck of a deal, one thing I should point out, if you found this thing on Craigslist and you're watching this video and you want to know, hey, you know, MSRP was, I don't know, what was it, $500, something like that on this monitor. These things were not cheap when they were new. And I found it for $350. No, do not buy it. Don't do it. Just don't do it. The reason for that is because one of the things with LCDs is that there are issues with them that cannot be diagnosed in the way that you can diagnose and test for, at least to some degree, with, say, I don't know, a video card. You know, with a video card, yeah, there's things that could be hidden, but in reality, you run a couple of passes of 3D Mark, you know, either Firestrike or Time Spy at, you know, 2K resolution on that sucker, you're going to have a pretty good idea that that card's working as it should. I mean, it's not perfect. There's always that one-off thing. But LCDs, it is not uncommon to have issues with an LCD that manifest over long term. So, you know, you'll have an issue like you'll turn the LCD on, it'll run fine for, you know, 2 hours. And then it'll crap out. And, you know, whatever. It'll shut off, the image will go weird, whatever happens. And then you'll shut it off, you'll turn it back on, it'll work fine. And 2 hours later, and you'll, you know, it'll do the same thing. And you'll say, well, you know, this isn't that big of a deal, so what? Well, 6 months later, poof, it's dead. It's a lot more common. I'm not saying every used LCD, I'm not saying every deal is the same, but it's a lot more common to have issues like that with LCDs, I find, than any other product, which is why typically I try to avoid selling LCDs. So if I offer LCDs to a buyer, typically I will offer my own personal previous, you know, LCDs. You know, I'll have a 27-inch, like the one in my other video, the one that's over there that I do demos on. I've scratched the heck out of that LCD just because I do computer setups there. Sometimes I'll drop a side panel against it, whatever. So sometimes when I go to upgrade those LCDs, I'll get a buyer that says, hey, I really need a screen, and I'll say, well, if you don't care about visible physical blemishes, yes, you're going to see it when it's on, you'll get used to it, you'll forget it's there. I'll say, you know what, I got this nice 27-inch Asus, you can have it for free, no big deal, it's not worth anything, it's scratched up, it's dinged up, it's got physically visible damage, it's yours, have it, take it. Yeah, back to the topic at hand. If you found this and you found a great deal, you know, say $100, $150, yes, absolutely, it's a great deal. I switched out from I think the one I was using before was the screen I have. You can't quite see it in the frame, but it's right there. I did it in my video last night. Can you see it? Oh, yes, this right here is a Samsung 27-inch. It's as generic as they get. It's a 27-inch LED backlit, 60 Hertz, 1080p panel. It's perfectly fine. It's the type of thing that you'd find. You know, it's a decent panel. I see people trying to get $100 out of them, but realistically, my opinion is it's a $40 or $50 screen. You shouldn't be paying more than that for it, and it works fine for generic gaming, especially if you want, you know, ultra cheap, but on a big screen. Man, I keep forgetting where I am here. I need to get scripts. hate to do it. I really don't want to do scripts. I really don't. I really like the off the cuff type stuff. But anyway, so back to the Predator. Oh yeah, so I went from the Samsung to the Predator. It's night and day difference. In fact, when I set up my setup here, I had to put the Samsung and another slow monitor on a different system because I can't deal with it anymore. Dang it, am I focused? This camera doesn't have any sort of autofocus, so I kind of have to stay right in focus. So going from the generic 60 Hertz to the 240 Hertz Acer Predator, it was quite a big difference. And if you've watched any of my more recent Fortnite videos compared to my older Fortnite videos, it made a huge difference. Part of it was jump in frame rate, which I obviously achieved without actually upping the capabilities of the monitor, but the monitor helps as well. It definitely has made a difference in competitiveness. I would probably, if you found this exact same monitor in 144 Hertz for say $100, I'd still say it was a good deal. I mean, 120 Hertz or higher, if you can find a gaming monitor for $100, 27-inch or larger for $100 or less, don't even think about it. If it works and you know it works and you can risk the $100 in case it doesn't work, just buy it. So as far as the typical complaints, because there's going to be a lot of reviews out there that say, oh, the black level is this, you know, a lot of people complain about things like light bleed, or you've got you got light bleed, you got, just the typical, the non-IPS issues. There's a lot of people that are really spoiled with their IPS monitors that are used to these perfect colors, these crisp pictures, and I'm going to say the Acer isn't that, and that's not what it's for. But that being said, my finding is blacks. Good enough. And let me preface this. I guess I should have said this first. I used to consider myself kind of a monitor junkie. I'm not anymore. I was super into monitors. I was a monitor junkie back when the original Dell 3007 came out, and I had one of those. It was an amazing monitor, but monitors have come so far now that the lowest of the low is not nearly as bad as the lowest of the low was back when that 3007 30-inch was new, and 2560 1440 is not the rare thing that it was back then, so it's not as big of a deal today as it was then to have a high-end monitor. Back then it was necessary if you wanted even a decent, you know, experience, but now it's just all the monitors except the lowest of the lowest of the low are just, they're decent now. But as someone who comes from expecting a decent experience on my monitor, I'm gonna say the black levels are good enough. Light bleed issues, good enough. Color accuracy for general day-to-day usage, good enough. I'm not going to sit here and tear the thing apart like some other people are. If you found the deal like I've mentioned, buy it. Just be done with it. So I've got it turned on. Let me see if I can show this. It's not very easy. This is the box. So I wanted to get this video in before I dumped this box. I'm probably going to dump this box tomorrow. I got it for $150. I don't need to keep the box. Bye-bye. Okay, so this is the monitor. I turned all my other monitors off. It's not going to be the greatest on camera. Let's see if I can actually, see if I can do this. Okay, let's see if I can focus that in. There is literally no way to demonstrate this monitor on camera. Not with the kind of gear that I have access to. It can't be done. But there it is. It looks pretty. The stand is not as... Focus that back in again. There we go. Oh look, it just went off. The stand... is not as chintzy as it looks. It looks like a cheap stand, but once you actually get the monitor up on it, it's a decent stand. I'm not unhappy with it. The up and down arm on it is decent. Again, good enough. I believe you have to use DisplayPort. That's the only real caveat on the thing. You have to use DisplayPort with it. Okay, get myself a little back in frame there. The HDMI can't run 240 Hertz. That's probably the only real caveat. Anyway, if you have any questions coming from someone who bought this on the cheap, let me know. I'll feel free to ask in the comments, and I will do my best to answer everybody. Thanks for watching the video, and see you next time.